Hey guys, Metal Jesus here, and I am taking another trip. This time I am going to be going down to Houston, Texas to attend the Comicpalooza expo. I think this is going to be pretty different because this expo isn't focused on video games like most of the expos I go to. Instead, this one's all about pop culture. A lot of people say this is the Texas version of San Diego Comic-Con, and I've heard it's massive and really fun. And you guys know me, I can pretty much find video games everywhere, and so I'm excited to go someplace new. Let's take a look. It's 4:50 a.m. and I'm heading to Houston, Texas, and supposedly there is a severe weather event, whatever that means. Leading up to this weekend, I was checking the local Houston news, and everywhere they were saying that there's going to be an extreme weather event happening. And I don't know exactly what that means. Like I said, I've never been to Houston, Texas before, and a lot of these sites were like, yeah, extreme flooding and rain and who knows what else. So I have no idea what to expect. The flight down there isn't too bad, actually. It's about 4.5 hours from Seattle, and it's just long enough to watch a movie and maybe stare out the window a little bit. And as we're approaching, though, it definitely gets more and more cloudy. And I'm told it's like, man, it's going to be very hot and very muggy, so I'm mentally preparing myself. What's cool about this expo is that the hotel that they have us staying at, which is the Hilton, is directly connected to the convention center. I love it when this is the case because I don't have a car, and so having the ability for me to just walk out of my room and then cross over into the convention center really quickly, really easily is so great. But I'm a little early, actually, because I arrive on Thursday and the expo technically doesn't start until Friday morning. So I decided to walk around the convention, which is in downtown Houston. And like I said, I've never been here before, and I didn't know what to expect. If you're not familiar with Houston, it is the 4th largest city in the entire United States. It's actually fairly large and has a ton of people there, but I didn't know what to expect because, to be quite honest, in Seattle and where I live, not a lot of people talk about Houston, right? When you think of Texas, most people that I know will think of Austin, they'll think of Dallas-Fort Worth, they'll talk about San Antonio, and for some reason, just not a lot is spoken about Houston. So again, I didn't know what to expect, and I was walking around down here, and I have to say, it's really nice. I was having a great time walking around down here. I'm kind of just wandering around, to be honest with you. I don't know where I'm going. I'm just kind of checking it all out. It's funny though, you can definitely see a sheen of sweat on my brow here. And it's actually not that hot. It's like, I think it's less than 80 degrees, but lots of humidity. And one of the things that really stood out to me was so many of the murals that were painted on the buildings. They are everywhere. I don't know what the statistic is for Houston, but it's gotta be hundreds of these down there. I love this idea. I wish Seattle did this more, actually. I wish every city did this. Just have really great artwork that is on the side of buildings. And it just seemed like every time I went around a corner, went down a street, there was a new one to take in. This was really cool. Oh yes, I'm reminded about Texas grass. And it's completely different than the grass we get in Seattle. It's really thick, it's really durable here. It's probably because of the heat that it's just gotta survive better. I don't know, it's wild. By the way, my eyes are not red because I'm high. It's because my allergies are freaking out. Gonna need some more Zyrtec, I think. All right, getting up the next day, and this is the first day of the expo, and I look out my window and the skies are clear. It's all blue and it's gorgeous out. So I'm kind of like, is there gonna be like an extreme weather event? You know, what was all that about? I have no idea, right? But okay, so far it's pretty mellow. It's funny, they said there was gonna be extreme weather and I'm not seeing it so far. It's gorgeous out, very hot, very muggy, but not really bad weather. The thing I like to do when I go to a new city that I've never been to is hop onto the Yelp app and start looking for places that are supposed to be good to eat. And one of the first ones that showed up, especially when looking for hamburgers, actually, is called Rodeo Goat, and it's just across the street from the convention center. I'm gonna check out this place called Rodeo Goat, but supposedly they've got really good burgers, so I'm excited. And this did not disappoint. Now, I know it looks sloppy and probably overkill, but let me tell you, oh, that was such a tasty burger. The first day of the expo is very mellow. It's Friday and it starts at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, and not a lot going on, to be quite honest, at this point. I was able to kind of get in a little bit early because I have a booth there as well where I'm doing some signings and things like that. But I'll tell you what, at the far end of this expo, this thing really caught my eye because they had a collection of cars that were wrapped and painted and inspired by anime and video games and pop culture. And this is no small part of the expo here. It was actually a huge selection of cars. And what I love about this is that it's not like exotic sports cars. I mean, those are great, right? But you're not seeing a bunch of Ferraris and Lamborghinis here. You're actually seeing a bunch of fairly common, normal cars here that are wrapped and inspired by some of these amazing pop culture things like anime and video games and movies and things like that. This just went on and on and on. And again, it's just a small part of this expo floor, and I was really blown away. There's some very impressive artwork on all of these. I can't imagine driving this around the city. I mean, you would just stop traffic, right? Everyone would look at your car if you drove around with this. I mean, it's pretty cool, I have to say, so this is very fun. That's really all I did the first day, and instead what I decided to do is kind of save up all of my energy for the main event, which is going to be on Saturday. So I decided to, call it a night a little bit early and try to hit it really hard on Saturday morning. Well, good thing I went to bed early because I was woke up at around 6 a.m. to the sound of rain tapping on my hotel window. And then when I opened the blinds, well, you can see here, it was a full-on lightning and thunderstorm for about 2 hours, it seemed like. So yeah, it looks like the weatherman was right. Now, we don't get a lot of these types of storms in Seattle. Yes, we'll get, heavy rain every once in a while, but very rarely do we actually get thunder and lightning. I don't know exactly why that is. It could be because we're protected by the mountains, and also it's typically not that warm in Seattle, which I think that's what creates the thunder. But yeah, this was beautiful. It was actually really cool. I mean, because it was loud. Like, I don't even know if you guys are picking that up, but it was thunderous. It was loud, and the lightning was awesome. It almost felt like someone was in my hotel room with the television on. You know how if your TV is on, like on a sitcom or something like that, and it's dark, and the scenes are changing and stuff like that? That's kind of what it felt like. But yeah, super cool. By the time I actually got moving was around 8 a.m. and I wanted to go grab some espresso, so I started my day at Tenfold Coffee Company, which is just literally across the street from the hotel. I had to start my day with my typical 3 shots of espresso and an iced mocha, and then I also added something I've never had before, which is a ham and cheese empanada. I think it's how you pronounce that. It's something we don't really have in Seattle, but it was tasty. It's basically kind of like a lightweight fried dough that's wrapped with this kind of pillow of soft cheese and ham. It was pretty good. And then I took in the expo, and this thing is big. I can see why they compare it to the San Diego Comic-Con, because it is very well attended. There's lots of booths here, and again, all focused on pop culture. So, you know, anime, movies, a ton of Star Wars stuff here, a ton of comic book stuff here. It was just kind of everything. TV shows, you know, it was everything that you probably had on your posters is here in this expo. And again, this isn't a video game expo, but there is a lot of video game inspired stuff here. You'll see a lot of things that are Nintendo inspired or Pokemon or Mario. Plus you'll see occasionally some PlayStation stuff, you know, whether it's God of War or Jak and Daxter, things like that. But as far as dedicated video games, you know, people selling them, there was really only one booth here, and it was relatively small. And obviously I'm a video game YouTuber, and so I was kind of curious why they brought me down, although I suspect that they want to bring more of that element into this expo over time. I also think that actually Retropalooza will be in Houston next year, so maybe they will combine. I have no idea. Several people did tell me, though, that there is a really good retro gaming store in Houston that's not very far away. And so I was like, okay, well, I will check that out. And so I grabbed an Uber and headed over to Replay Games. So this is a small little store on a side street, but as soon as I walked in, I could see it was packed full of good stuff. I'll be honest, I was impressed because they have a little of everything here, including something I don't think I've ever seen before. So check this out. It's called the Sharp Famicom Titler AN510. And you're probably like me going, what the heck is that? I mean, you guys know I've seen a bunch of video game related stuff, but I have never seen this device before. And it turns out it was designed for journalists back in the late 80s, essentially for people who wanted to capture the footage and screenshots of video games. So for instance, if you're doing a story about a game, whether it's a review or maybe something that's coming out and you need screenshots from that, this is where you would plug in the cartridge and then use this device to then capture that footage for you. Like I said, I've never seen this before. This is so wild looking. I mean, it's crazy because it has all this stuff on here. Like, what the heck? And as you can imagine, the price for this kind of matches its rarity. So, this would go for thousands of dollars online, especially if he had the box. I'm not entirely sure because I think this one is actually loose, but he did verify that it does work. So again, seeing this in a small gaming shop in Houston was wild. Oh, and I guess there's an adapter that will let you play and capture Sega Genesis or Mega Drive games as well. The owner of the store was very excited to point out the new Pokemon pinball machine that they have set up in the front of the store that anybody can walk up and play. I noticed that they have a lot of boxed Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance games here. As a matter of fact, when I saw this, I took some screenshots and sent them to my buddy Reggie, where he was excited to see some of these games here actually, because he loves collecting in the box Game Boy games. And so, yeah, some of these are actually relatively uncommon. You don't see them very often. Check out this collection of Philips CDI demo games, including the 2 Zelda ones. Man, I don't think I've ever seen that before. And the owner was very quick to point out that, yeah, the prices kind of reflect the rarity on these. He's got a fully working Nintendo Virtual Boy here with a stack full of games, as well as a Neo Geo Pocket Color, also with a bunch of games to get you started. They also have a respectable collection of TurboGrafx-16/PC Engine games here, both in the box and also loose. Anybody looking to buy a Michael Jackson Moonwalker ad? You'll notice in the center right here behind the counter, they have a wild selection of stuff that they're also going through and pricing and testing and all that sort of stuff. You know, not only just video games, but also collectible things for like Nintendo and PlayStation and all that sort of stuff back here. So again, a lot of this isn't even priced yet, but they're working on it to bring it out onto the floor. So they obviously get a lot of trades from, different customers and collectors that come in. And like I said, I was very impressed with the selection of games in here, both old and new. It's funny because at the expo, I had several people come up to me and they're like, hey, we live in Houston and we don't know where to get retro games. And I was like, well, you should probably check out Replay Games because they've probably got what you're looking for. And by the way, guys, they aren't sponsoring this at all. I actually messaged him just out of the blue on Facebook like a few hours before I showed up, just to kind of give him a heads up and make sure it was okay to film. But yeah, overall, I had a really good time in this store. I saw a bunch of really cool stuff. So if you live in the Houston area, you might want to check it out. After that, I was getting pretty hungry, and so I walked around the corner and ended up at a place called the Post Beer and Wine. This is a little pub that has some really tasty Tex-Mex tacos. I was in Texas, and I was like, man, I got to get me some good Mexican food, and so this place was very tasty, and also really cool owner. He was back behind the bar. We were talking about video games and Houston and food and beer and stuff like that, so yeah, this is a pretty cool place. And while I was in there, another storm rolled through. And the reason why I mention this is because it's so wild in Texas. I think because it's so flat that you can go from sunny and gorgeous to pouring rain, thunderstorms. As a matter of fact, in that bar, the lights were flickering and it didn't affect anybody at all. Nobody even like paused for a second while the lights were flickering and the TVs were buzzing, right? But I was like, oh my gosh, wow, this is a crazy storm we got going on here. And it didn't even faze them at all. Getting back to the expo, one of the special things about this is all the great guests that they bring in from all around the country to meet with fans. These are some people like Vincent D'Onofrio, Pam Grier, Edward James Olmos, and some big names from the Matrix franchise, also Daredevil, Halo, all these really cool people. And I was able to hang out and get a selfie with some of these people in the backstage green room area. The one I was most excited to meet and hang out with was Pam Grier. Now, a little context here with this photo is that I was teasing her because she was eating a cookie in between different signing sessions. And so, but it was super fun hanging out with her. She was super nice. She talked about a new movie that she's writing and some of the stories about some of the classics that she worked on, like Foxy Brown and also Jackie Brown and Coffee and all those kind of movies. So yeah, she did not disappoint. She was very funny and just kick ass, man. She was awesome. The other highlight for me is all the cosplayers that show up for this expo and just have amazing costumes. You know, whether they're doing Star Wars or they're doing some sort of anime or movie inspired one, or maybe they're doing their own spin on something. You know, maybe they're doing something kind of humorous or funny with it, but they were everywhere and they were always really interesting to watch. Unfortunately, I only had about 2.5 days in Houston, and most of that was taken up by the expo. However, a lot of people told me to check out Buffalo Bayou Park, which is fairly close and part of a big network of parks in the middle of Houston. And so, yeah, I hopped in another Uber and drove over there. As you can see, the weather is glorious again, which is great, and it's not too hot, but yes, it is a little muggy still. This is a huge park and it's popular with the locals because you can see them running and doing exercise and hanging out with their families here. What I liked about this is that it was green, it was lush, it was really pretty, but then in the background you get all of those big skyscrapers too. So you always know that you're in the middle of the city, but yet it's beautiful out. The only thing that was kind of funky about it is that the water was really muddy and dirty looking. It could be simply just because it was raining so much. I mean, it was kind of muddy everywhere. You see me walking here, it was like everywhere you went, it was kind of still soggy and wet and a little bit of mud. So I'm sure that's probably what it is. Maybe at other times in the year, the water's a little bit more clear, more blue, more pretty, perhaps. I think I got some sun, right? I'm looking a little red. And as I was going along, I started to definitely heat up. Again, I'm from Seattle, so yes, we do have humidity here, but we don't have the heat. So after about 45 minutes or so, I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm gonna die. It was definitely catching up to me. I'm heading back to the expo. This is the final push here on Sunday. Gonna hang out at my booth and do a meet and greet and then head home. It's been fun. And then I wrap this day up with a trip to a deli that's just around the corner from the hotel. And I gotta say that this was actually a really good lunch here. So you can see I have this salmon kebab with the seasoned veggies, and honestly guys, some of the best mac and cheese I've ever had in my life. It was so decadent and so tasty and so good. And so that, guys, is my quick trip to Houston, Texas for the Comicpalooza Expo. I had a good time hanging out in your city. I think the only regret is that it was just too short. I needed 5, 6, 7 days or so to truly explore it, truly experience Houston. But that's okay. There's always next time. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching. Thank you for subscribing, and take care.